Can't go for Trevor stuff.
$125.
Being the Enterprise lot. Charles Nora, 60502. Red Honda. Charles Nora, 60502.
Traffic aim.
Can't come over here tomorrow.
$127.
Can't come over here to them.
25, Southwest Terrace. This afternoon,
Correct.
37 subject Washington and Ivy Lane. It's an older male white looking into the apartment window. He's wearing a dark t-shirt and jeans and has on glasses.
Can't count 548, 1040, coming from duty fuel.
Yeah.
Can't count from Ashland, Robert, too.
Sure, go ahead.
Can't count. Who's considered exchange of quarters from Riverside out of Bradley to Ashland, please?
10-4 change quarters from Bradley to Ashland.
Or zero together, 45 Ivy Lane, 45 Ivy, please.
Park. Riverside out of Bradley where you 10-4 on the page.
Bradley's good for. Okay, so now one by name when you're ready.
Was that?
Last name is Johnson. First name is Brittany. Brittany. And Mary Little. 10-15-97. 101597 female.
You were fucking with her last night.
Just hugging. Okay, now, 541. Before he started, John 530. I'll be in service. King County 526. I'm in service with. Okay, Travis, photo to 741.
Yeah, Marcelo.
Shut your fucking mouth and do something about it. Don't tamper with those machines.
I do not have high LDL bad cholesterol, and I do. I perform tests perfectly. I tried it. It's looking pretty good right away. A little spicy, pretty interesting. Also interesting. Would you rather free matter and experience some form of pale matter hair loss in your life that needs to help prevent that response to the breakdown? Let's get right into it. Obviously, Rock Ray, there's some interesting stuff going on. There's an ideal conception of that. Here's how it's played out on the field for the teams. So all the action happened in the second inning with the Orioles Baltimore game. That fastball is absolutely tattooed off the wall. Go for a triple of the fastball to Mark. Rock Ray has about a 55% whip rate on his slider, except when he pitches in yards. He's got like a 35 still there, but it's down. That pitch he wants the curveball for strike. That's a swing and miss and slide. So that's something that he's used to getting. It's a really nice pitch. He's watching it. Really nice pitch. He's used to getting swings. Misses on those pitches. And it's starting to feel there's money enough there to take something. Like that one a lot. You got to take it. So he's going to start to just throw a bunch of sliders to run the shape of fast launches. So let's throw a slider. Let's see what's going on. That's it. Swinging. Here's another one. And he takes it again. No interest at all. Gets the call by Young. Strike. So now it's 2-2. He's going to go slider again. And that, the batter has no interest. Hey guys, so I found something really horrifying with our Google Play device, and frankly, I'm quite concerned. So check this out. Okay, people, are you connected to the government? Listening, document EJ90. Listening project 3378. Like, why would she reply to that? And honestly, it sounds like some sort of secret code. So is the CIA listening? I have no idea, but honestly, that sounds pretty suspect. Hey guys, so I found something really horrifying with our Google Play device, and frankly, I'm quite concerned. So check this out. Okay, Google, are you connected to the government? Listening, document EJ90. Listening project 3378. Like, why would she reply to that? And honestly, it sounds like some sort of secret code. So is the CIA listening? I have no idea, but honestly.
Then so forth.
You know what I hate about bad jokes? They're not funny.
Joe Biden! Joe Biden! Joe Biden! Most popular president in history. My butt. Hey, guys, gals, and pals. Mr. Obvious here. And today, we're going to talk about a viral meme that's been trending. F Joe Biden. Chants have been ringing out at college football stadiums, as well as many other places. As the Southern chant spreads north, as Mets and Yankees fans do the same thing. We're also going to talk about Biden getting trolled by literal 8-year-olds. And the fact that Biden basically just sent the Taliban millions of dollars, although they're calling it humanitarian assistance. We're going to talk about all of that and more, but before we do, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for updates for future content, and share this video with your family and friends, because who doesn't love to laugh at Sleepy Joe? But first, a quick shout out to our sponsor. All hail the Carrion King. Introducing a new high fantasy novel about a fairy tale world, a paradise corrupted by the Carrion King. A mysterious monster seeks to define If you like fantasy novels, art, and stories about eldritch evil, then buy the book All Hail the Carrion King, now available on Kindle and paperback by clicking the affiliate link down below. Get your copy today. And we're back. So, let's talk about this viral trend. Apparently, college football fans around the country are saying F Joe Biden, F Joe Biden. And apparently this is becoming very popular. Now, this is important because the majority of college students, well, they tend to be Democrat voters, meaning that Biden may be losing support around the country. Here it says, a profane chant mocking Joe Biden broke out at college football games for the second straight week in stadiums across southern states as the president's approval ratings dip following the chaotic evacuation from Afghanistan and his controversial vaccine mandate for federal workers. The F. Joe Biden shouts echoed throughout stadiums during games played by Coastal Carolina, Virginia Tech, Auburn, Alabama State, Mississippi State, North Carolina, and Texas A&M. So they post the following tweets. So far, this has happened like 4 times at different stadiums. I've personally seen a couple of these videos. And of course, you have liberals on Twitter crying about this. Eldon on Twitter says, they're clearly in Mississippi. The least educated, least progressive, and least vaccinated people in the U.S. of A. Crime on. Now, I want to debunk the narrative that this is only happening in conservative states, because this is what liberals have been saying. I'm going to read you the following comment. Here, a username, Celio says, it also happened last night in New York. It's not just Trump-friendly southern states, Daily Mail. It's throughout the country. So for a football stadium in New York to be shouting F Biden, he has to be doing very, very bad among Democrats. College-age kids overwhelmingly vote Democrat. It's only when they get out of college that they start realizing they have to pay taxes, and Democrats love to raise their taxes. I want to show you this other hilarious story of Biden literally getting trolled by 8-year-olds. Here on the Daily Mail, Biden poses for pictures with kids in MAGA hats and a Trump t-shirt during the 9/11 memorial in Shanksville. So, in the following photo, you can see Joe Biden, who's posing for a photo op with this group of children. 2 of them are wearing MAGA hats. One of them is wearing a really cool Trump shirt, actually. I kind of want one of those myself. And he doesn't suspect a thing. I mean, what does it say about the country when your president is getting trolled by 8-year-olds? Not to mention, I'm sure you guys heard about this, but Biden was literally booed at the 9/11 memorial. realizing that 90% of the fleet gets stolen by the government and then sell it for a profit. Yeah, it's all a bad joke, folks. I don't believe this money is truly going to end up in the hands of the Afghan people. It's sad, but that's the way it is. It's all hogwash. And speaking of hogwash, let's talk about hypocrisy. Something in no short supply for Democrats. Here on the Daily Mail, Biden's federal vaccine mandate does not apply to Congress because it is only for the executive branch. In a classic tale of rules for thee, but not for me. Biden's federal vaccine mandate does not apply to Congress. So we have Congress members out there saying, you better get your vaccine. Get your vaccine or else you can't work in the store. You know, like the typical Rachel Leeds, forcing people what to do with their medical decisions and whatnot, which I think is terrible. But they themselves don't have to take the vaccine. The mandate does not apply to them. That's disgusting, folks. This shows you that the rules for thee but not for me thing is very, very real. Here it says, President Biden's executive order requiring all federal workers to be vaccinated does not extend to members of Congress, their staff, or federal courts. The president on Thursday signed sweeping orders, one of which required COVID-19 vaccinations for all federal workers, dropping the previous option of regular testing. Another order forced businesses with over 100 workers to get vaccinated or tested for coronavirus at least once a week. So this is the most tyrannical thing to come out of Biden's America so far, and I say so far because, you know, it hasn't even been 1 year. I'm sure it'll get worse. You have Dr. Anthony Fauci saying that he would support COVID vaccine requirements for air travel. Here on Fox News, Fauci backs COVID vaccine requirement for air travel. He says, quote, I would support that. The White House has said a vaccine requirement for air travel is still on the table. So as you can see, Biden administration is getting deeper and deeper into absolute tyranny. We're headed towards a communist China here in America. This is surprising considering all the money that Sleepy Joe got from the Chinese. This is absolutely ridiculous. They are stripping you of your job. They are stripping you of your ability to move and leave from blue states, from areas that are run by tyrannical Democrats. This violates the Constitution. You're not allowed to be held. You're not allowed to be held against your will. But no, you have to get the vaccine. Rules for thee, but not for me. Meanwhile, Jen Psaki recently admitted that the Biden vaccine mandate doesn't include migrants at the border. She refused to answer why, and when somebody asked her, so you're saying that this mandate applies to federal workers, but not to illegal aliens crossing the border? And Jen Psaki said that is correct, and basically ignored it and went on to the next question. This administration is a joke, a dirty, dirty joke. But that, my friends, is merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? Let me know by commenting down below in the comment section. As always, support the channel by joining me on Patreon or Subscribe, as this channel is currently not monetized. It relies on viewers like you. Joining will give you access to a private Discord server called Fight Club. It is exclusive, so be sure to join. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time.
We have a lot of other things to cover here, but Dr. Sherwood, while we wake up. Secretary. Did the president find Colin Exxon president have that needs to manipulate the intelligence about the town? The president said to then President Ghani, I was exactly what I said in public, that the issue was not whether Afghanistan had the capacity to withstand the elements that are in the land. So the version of transcript was not something that doesn't matter. Let's see where I am. That entire people together are saying it's lost its lives in correct. Absolutely not. So the transcript is incorrect. That's your testimony today. Then the intelligence that we have already discussed with some
that is the most likely explanation, asking the president to manipulate the intelligence of what was actually going on in Talbot. And I'm going to tell you the 13 families that we serve most of them give God's answers on that. It's these families. Lord Lance Corporal Marine, this family deserves to truly know that. Marines Corporal, Marine Corporal David Payne, his family truly deserves to know. And that's why Joe Biden defending his act. I said, press from here, the Secretary of State. The way he was supposed to get the power of the awful evaluation. But that didn't happen. One was a massive question. So we didn't get really answers. However, one thing did happen. Congressman Scott Perry went off script and asked the Secretary of State about Hunter Biden. Watch. How long was your recent interview with the FBI, and was it a deposition?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to.
Are you saying that you have not had a recent interview with the FBI since becoming Secretary of State?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, and I'm happy to take that up with you offline.
Did the State Department turn over documents to the FBI related to Hunter Biden, Burisma, and or the Blue State Strategies Corporation?
You'll have to.
So you have no knowledge of this. You have had no. You don't. You are you saying you have not had an interview with the FBI?
It would not be appropriate for me to comment in a public forum on any legal proceedings that the department.
I'm not asking you to comment on the legal proceedings. I'm just asking if you've been interviewed by the FBI since becoming Secretary of State.
Again, I'm not going to comment one way or another on any legal proceedings or not that may or may not have happened.
Let me remind you that the topic of this hearing is Afghanistan. That's what I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, but the Secretary generally refuses to answer questions about Afghanistan, so I just figured we talk about something you should be intimately familiar with. Have you sought to alter any of your testimony from last year's Senate investigation regarding this topic? Mr. Secretary. Gentleman's time has expired.
The man asking those questions was Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, and he is now to react. Congressman, it is very clear the Secretary of State was caught off guard. He was stumbling. So what were you getting at right there? Why did you choose that line of questioning? What do you know?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. It's better to offer no excuse than a series of bad excuses, and that hearing certainly proves to the American people that we have a poor excuse for Secretary of State and an even worse one for President of the United States. But with that being said, listen, what we're trying to do is, obviously Blinken is well coached. He wouldn't come in person. He's on video, so he can pre-script all the questions. We can't. The screen goes dark when we're talking, so he has time to see our questions and hear our questions, and then get an answer from his advisors before he actually answers. And he wasn't going to answer any questions realistically on the horrific failure of Afghanistan. So I thought I'd talk to you about something that I knew was reported, that he had conversations with the FBI, and that potentially they called him back in because something's not matching up regarding his relationship with Hunter Biden when he was Assistant Secretary of State. I think it's something that the American people ought to know. I question the Secretary of State's judgment and his credibility regarding Afghanistan and everything else, and the fact that he's had a close relationship with Hunter Biden when he was Assistant Secretary of State regarding events in Ukraine. That's very concerning to the American people.
So Congressman, I want to slow you down for a second because I think this is important for the audience to know. Are you saying that you know for a fact that he met with the FBI regarding his relationship with Hunter Biden? What do you know specifically about that?
Well, that's the report I'm getting, but I think that the press, quite honestly, ought to ask him, like I asked him, and he wouldn't answer. I can't confirm it. I'm not in the FBI, and I'm not Secretary Blinken. There's one guy that can confirm it, and that's Secretary Anthony Blinken.
Do you know anything about the relationship between Hunter Biden and the Secretary? Because a lot of Americans are trying to figure out, why is he contacting the Deputy Secretary of State? Will he be able to do that if he wasn't Joe Biden's son? What is the reason for that connection?
Well, there are emails out there. It's open source that show the conversation was not about, as I understand it, what Anthony Blinken said, which was pro-Biden. I don't think they're about pro-Biden. I think they're about issues of Ukraine and other maybe projects that Hunter Biden was working on, and that's per the emails that are already out there.
Are you suggesting it was Burisma?
I can't suggest anything. I want the Secretary of State, he wants to talk to me offline. I suggest he talks to the American people and let all of us know what he was talking about.
Has he called you? Has he called you, Congressman? Because he talked about that in the hearing, that he was willing to talk offline. So has there been any coordination between your office to sit down with the secretary to get some answers to them? Because he didn't want the American people to hear about that today.
No, he did not. You can tell by the look on his face. He didn't deny it, right? But he hasn't called me about it. Maybe he's calling you, Lawrence, but he hasn't talked to me about it.
Do you plan on reaching back to his office, since he said under oath today that he was willing to do that? Do you plan on reaching out to his office to get those answers?
We certainly do, but here again, Lawrence, it's important not only that members of Congress have, remember, we're just representatives of the people. The important thing is that the people have this information. We need to know whether this guy is credible, whether his judgment is sound. And just remember, he just presided. He and President Biden presided over the worst foreign policy and national security failure in United States history. I think there's reason to question everything that he's been involved in.
Congressman, why did your chairman cut you off in the middle of that hearing? Because it seemed like when you were getting to the facts of the story and he started to shuffle a little bit, that the chairman jumped in. Is that procedure in the House?
Well, what procedure is by Democrats, and you look, they all close ranks, no matter how horrific the policy is. 13 dead Marines, America being, our reputation being dragged across the world stage. They all close ranks and do whatever's necessary to support the failed policy and their president, Joe Biden. They don't care about the American people. They care about the power that they have, and they're not going to let anybody assail their Secretary of State, on an open mic. So, yeah, he just had to cut it off.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to keep digging into the story.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
There is no end in sight when it comes to gun violence in Chicago. Just this weekend, 60 people were shot, 11 of those victims were under the age of 18. Now, Joe Biden would tell you, look, that kids are kids when it comes to COVID. After all, that's why he's pushing masks, vaccinations in school. But just this year, more kids have been shot in Chicago alone than have died of COVID in the whole country. According to the Chicago PD, at least 261 kids have been shot Chicago this year. Now compare that to 214 COVID-related deaths. The life of every child is important. Each death is a tragedy, no matter how they die. So why does it feel like Joe Biden is only frustrated about COVID? Joining me now is the founder of Black Guns Matter, Maude Silver. Maude, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, your heart. Why is there any interest from the President of the United States on this issue? I mean, he talks about vaccination, he talks about masks, he talks about lockdowns and keeping people safe. But the kids that are being shot every single day, not a word.
Well, because Joe Biden doesn't care about black people. It's not complicated. He spent most of his political career locking black people up. Joe Biden, even when he was famously running to be the vice president, said Obama, he's one of the clean ones. Joe Biden has zero interest. This facade, he's a part of that cabal. He's down with the opposite team. And I think that in essence, he's just showing us exactly who he is. He's shown us for half a century, but I think he's being more brazen with it. You saw a few days ago where he literally told the American people that, I'm getting tired of not being as much of a tyrant as I want to be, when he talks about how patience is wearing thin. So this is part for the course for Joe Biden, and not even just Joe Biden. You got to look at Lori Lightfoot over in Chicago. You got all these young people dying. This is the same person that said, with all last year with the fake woke, we're going to defund the police. We need all of this COVID money that she just reallocated right into the police department, but nothing for developing the communities that are impacted by this negligence in regards to, irresponsible gun ownership. So this is part for the course for Democrats. And the simple answer is Joe Biden doesn't care about black people, especially the black people in Houston, Chicago.
So then this is what it is struggling. Because it's not just Joe Biden, it's the whole Democratic Party. They're getting completely serious when it comes to the community. You got Kim Fox, you got the judges here, the city council, all of Democrats, they're running. But then I look at my Republican brothers and my sister, and I say, well, the Democrats are this bad. If they're this bad, why can't you beat them? I mean, it's just as simple. These people are crying out for help, and they're willing to accept anybody that is provoking change and liberty and choosing life over anything. So why can't you beat these bad candidates?
They can't beat the bad candidates because there's still a lot of, and again, I'm going to say the truth, and I don't want to offend, but some people are going to be offended by this. The reality is, a lot of the old guard on the right side, on the Republican side, on our libertarian side, they don't want to go into places that are scary or where the others are. You have candidates like Ken Klacik that ran out in Baltimore, raised $8 million by telling the truth about what was happening in that democratically ran city of Baltimore. You have other people attacking her, saying that she shouldn't run in places that are unwinnable. This is the
What does that
mentality
mean?
that right. Like America was unwinnable when we went up against the British folks. When people were fighting from captivity during enslavement in America, Harriet Tubman was fighting an unwinnable fight. John F. Kennedy asking the American people at that time to not, worry about just what their country can do for them, but what they can do for their country. That was unwinnable. This is the mentality that we've allowed to fester on the right. And a lot of that in these democratically ran cities, I understand it. I just disagree with it. It's because of the fact that we accept that, well, it's been this way for this long. If the founding fathers to this nation would have accepted it that way, we'd be speaking French right now. So the reality is, it's a victim and defeatist mentality that we on the right have to stop if we want to save the republic.
If you can't sell freedom and liberty, then maybe you shouldn't be in the fight, brother. So thank you so much for doing the program. I know you're doing it every day, working to win back out the year. I appreciate you coming on the program.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
It's time to discover the difference at the all-new Toyota of Bourbonnais. We've got new ownership with a new commitment to service. Toyota of Bourbonnais is now the home of the lifetime warranty, and we won't let price get in the way of making you a customer for life. Right now, drive the new Camry for just $239 a month, or choose a new Corolla for $169 a month. The all-new Toyota of Bourbonnais, home of the lifetime warranty.
At UBreak iFix, we diagnose any electronic device for free and promise to keep you informed every step of the way. Our trained technicians are equipped with the knowledge to get your device back up and running as soon as possible. And you get all this with our same 90-day warranty and excellent service that you know and love. Let the experts at your local UBreak iFix take a look at your broken device today.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Last night on this show, we played you a clip from a nearly hour-long video produced by two physicians in California, Dr. Dan Erickson and Arthur Receiving. Likely many of you had already seen it. That video has had more than 5 million views on YouTube. In their presentation, the two doctors presented a flurry of data pointing to what we are currently learning about this virus and how it spreads. They recited pages of government statistics and then interpreted them in light of their own long clinical experience as doctors. At one point, they noted the newly adjusted death rate in their state of California, which is much lower than anyone expected it to be. And they asked if government officials there should change their policies based on this new science. Why?
We've seen 1,227 deaths in the state of California with a possible incidence or prevalence of 4.7 million. That means you have a 0.03 chance of dying from COVID-19 in the state of California. 0.03 chance of dying from COVID in the state of California. Does that necessitate sheltering in place? Does that necessitate shutting down medical systems? Does that necessitate people being out of work?
So whatever your view of the mass quarantines, and maybe you're enthusiastic for them, the questions you just heard are valid questions. In fact, they're critical questions. We should all be asking those questions including and especially our policymakers. But as Dr. Erickson pointed out later in the video, dissent within the country is no longer tolerated in this country. Fact-based honesty, which is the soul of science, is under attack, even in hospitals. Dr. Erickson described physicians being pressured to classify illnesses and deaths as related to coronavirus, whether they believe that to be true or not.
We aren't pressured to test for pollution.
Mr. Chair,
We are doctors now. My friends, my doctors say, it's interesting. When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that? Why are we being pressured to add COVID to maybe increase the numbers and make it look a little bit worse than it is? I think so.
So what you just heard, what Dr. Erickson described, is called lying. And lying has no place in science ever. It's scary to think it takes place on a large scale in hospitals. He says it does. Viewers of Erickson's video were shocked and transfixed by this. They forwarded the video to friends who forwarded it on to their friends. And suddenly, millions of people who have spent the last 6 weeks on a diet of Tiger King and internet news were watching sober-minded medical researchers reading from charts of statistics. It's hard to recall a science video taking off like this one did. Not everyone was impressed by it. Some criticized the doctor's policy conclusions, and of course that's fair. Decent people have different opinions. We're not entirely certain what the perfect response to this pandemic is. Nobody is certain. There's no objective answer at the moment. At best, we can plod along with open minds and good faith. More informed debate is exactly what we need to make wise decisions going forward. Unfortunately for all of us, informed debate is exactly what the authorities don't want. They want unquestioned obedience, so they're cracking down on free expression. Last night, the doctor's video, the one you just saw, was pulled off of YouTube, the largest video hosting site in the world. It wasn't an accident. YouTube admitted doing it. The company cited a violation of, quote, community guidelines, and they did not apologize. Looking back, when all of this is finally over, and it will be, it's likely to see this moment what YouTube just did as a turning point in the way we live in this country, a sharp break with 250 years of law and custom. The two doctors' video was produced by a local television channel in California. It was, in effect, a mainstream news story. The video was not pornographic, didn't violate copyright or incite violence or commit libel. It didn't break any law. The only justification for taking it down was that the two physicians on screen had reached different conclusions from the people currently in charge. It was a form of dissent from orthodoxy. YouTube and its parent company, Google, have now officially banned dissent. The CEO of YouTube admitted that openly.
But then we also talked about removing information that is problematic. Of course, anything that is medically unsubstantiated, to people saying like, take vitamin C, take turmeric, like those all will cure you. Those are the examples of things that would be a violation of our policy. Anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy. And so remove is another really important part of our policy.
So you're not just putting the truth next to the lie, you're taking the lie down. That's a pretty aggressive approach.
Removing, quote, anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations will now be taken off the internet. Consider that for a minute. As a matter just of science, it's ludicrous. Like everyone else involved in global pandemic policy, the WHO has often been wrong in its recommendations. A lot of people have. In mid-January, WHO told us that coronavirus could not spread from person to person. In March, they told us that face masks didn't work. Those were lies, and they were welcome on Google's platform. Doctors who are actually treating patients with the virus, meanwhile, have just been banned. So no, this is not about science. Censorship never is about science. It's about power. Big technology companies are using this tragedy to increase their power over the American population. They're working in concert with politicians in order to do it. Just today, Facebook removed an events page for a political protest in Michigan. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who runs that state, was no doubt pleased to see it. Grossly mismanaging an entire state is a lot easier when citizens are not allowed to complain about it, and now they're not. Last week, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg explained that protests like these are no longer protected political speech. They're, quote, misinformation.
How do you deal with the fact that Facebook is now being used to organize a lot of these protests to defy social distancing guidelines in states? If somebody's trying to organize something like that,
information, we do classify that as harmful misinformation and we take that down.
Harmful misinformation. That is a phrase familiar to anyone who has watched totalitarian regimes in any country. It's not how Mark Zuckerberg describes political opinions he doesn't like. Our free press exists to push back against obvious abuses of power like this one. It's the reason we have a First Amendment. It's the only reason we have a First Amendment. But suddenly our media are not concerned about freedom of speech. Reporters applaud our overlords as they punish us for disagreeing. You just saw it in that clip from CNN. That happens every day. Our media are no longer challenging power, they are colluding with power. And that may be why there's been so little critical coverage of the massive expansion of our surveillance state currently in progress. In the name of fighting the coronavirus, tech companies are now following you through your cell phone. They're watching you from above with drones. Those sound like paranoid fantasies. They are not. It's happening as we speak. Needless to say, our politicians approve of this.
How do you feel about the drones?
At this point, we need to save lives, and it's really important that in public spaces, people are abiding by the directives.
Yeah, we've got to do it. So what do we have here? We have big companies partnering with the government to spy on you without your knowledge. Americans locked in their homes, banned from going to church, placated with sedatives like weed and beer. Anyone who speaks up is silent. Political demonstrations are illegal. Organizers are arrested. Only opinions approved by leaders, many of them unelected, are allowed on information platforms. Does that sound familiar? It sounds a lot like China. Of all the many ironies of this moment, so many of them bitter, the hardest to swallow is this one. As we fight this virus, we are becoming far more like the country that spawned it. We are becoming more like China. It's horrifying. And it tells you everything that our professional class enthusiastically welcomes it. Over the weekend, the Atlantic magazine published an article by two academics calling for an end to freedom of speech in America. Their model for an ideal system, the totalitarian government of China. Quote, in the debate over freedom versus control of the internet, China was largely correct and the U.S. was wrong, end quote. You ought to read the whole thing. Truly, you should. It's the future. We could quote from it from the rest of the show, but we'll give you just one more. Quote, significant monitoring and speech control are inevitable components of a mature and flourishing internet, and governments must play a large role in these practices to ensure that the internet is compatible with society's norms and values, end quote. Norms and values. Whose norms and values? Well, our leaders' norms and values, of course, but mostly their interests. Those in power are the ones our professional class seeks to protect, not the rest of the country. Freedom of conscience never endangers the public. It only threatens the powerful. It endangers their control. It hinders their ability to dictate election results, to loot the economy, to make policies based on whim for their own gain. No wonder our leaders have done such a poor job protecting us from China. They're on the same team. Dave Rubin is the author of the fantastic new book, Don't Burn This Book. It came out today. We're happy to have him on tonight. Dave, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Good to have you. Do you notice that the norms and standards, to quote the Atlantic, of American life seems to have changed overnight, and all of a sudden, we are being told we must accept things that would have been completely unimaginable 2 months ago?
Well, Tucker, there's so much to talk about here. First off, I didn't realize I was going to be on a sci-fi show tonight, but we are entering a dystopian future. We are entering an authoritarian future because, as I said to you before, authoritarians love authoritarianism. So they're taking this opportunity when we're all confused, we're all locked at home. The only way we can communicate with each other is through their pipes, is through YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and everything else. And they're actually finally saying to us, this is who we are. I mean, the Atlantic is ridiculous. I don't know anything anymore. But the bigger issue here is the YouTube, Twitter, Facebook component of it, because we are now saying to them, or they're saying to us, we're going to tell you what's true. And if you dare go against what we say is true, not necessarily what is true, but what we say is true,
and we're going to boot you. So, of course, the other part of this is that it will always only be one side that gets booted here. I mean, is Facebook running around and Twitter and YouTube running around? Are they taking away all the Russian collusion videos that were up over the past couple of years? I'm pretty sure MSNBC has a YouTube channel that still has videos on it. I mean, that was pushing lies and misinformation and propaganda. So we need to debate these things. If I was to interview these two doctors that you showed the video of, would my channel be deleted? Am I not allowed to talk about that? Is that not what science and open inquiry really is about? That you test theories and then you find out what actually is true? And as you pointed out, and this may be the most important part, it's not as if the WHO is infallible. They were literally just a few weeks ago telling us not to wear masks. Now, by law, I tried to go to CVS yesterday, and I wasn't going to wear a mask. I was just going to run in and out, and it said in the front of the store, it says by law you have to wear a mask. So it's not as if these people have some, some total stranglehold on truth that the rest of us have to bow to, unless they force us to. And unfortunately, big tech has got us now more than ever because we're all trapped at home, and it's the only way we can communicate.
So no one in science has a monopoly on the truth. Science, in fact, is a rejection of the idea that there is a monopoly on truth. It's the endless search for what we can prove. That's